What's up everyone, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'll be making a full review of this Romancing Saga 2 Sekishusai banner that brings Sekishusai, a counter specialist and also lightning damage dealer for long fights, and Sparrow, a bow user with strong damage, roll attacks and also ailments, and Aries, a character that offers support but has a pretty strange kit. Well, let's start talking about Sekishusai. He looks like a martial artist, but he actually uses great swords. He has a focus on 3 status, that being STR, Endurance, and Will, and has bonuses and arrows for STR and Will, and if you want to find agility arrows, you find in his past 8 style. Well, there is a problem with Sekishusai. By trying to focus on these 3 attacks, he loses a little on some others, like his dexterity is pretty old by 70%, agility is only 71, he's pretty slow, and he wanted to get a little intelligence to be a debuffer. Well, so 65 intelligence. Love and charisma are pretty bad, but does not affect his build anyway. Well, let's move into passives. The first one is called Forged by Adversity, and it's actually pretty nice. Sekishusai is a counter specialist. This one gives him a down stance on the start of a turn, and since this thing stacks, it will increase his chance of being attacked by a lot. You don't even really need to use a formation that draws aggro into Sekishusai. You can even use him on Tortoise formation, for example. He will still draw plenty of attacks, although you may still prefer to use something like Desert Lance Axe if you want to take full advantage, although I don't know if Sekishusai is better as a damage dealer or as a counter. Well, and also when attacked, he will increase his own endurance and will by 15%, and will also increase his own OD gauge. Well, let me explain this. There are 2 different things. On the start of a turn, he gets this down stance, and then when attacked, not on start of a turn, he will get both endurance and will by 15%. That means that he will, after taking many hits, barely take any damage, and every time he gets attacked, he will build up his overdrive gauge more than anyone else. Well, I needed to go check on our Roman Saga characters that can get OD gauge passively without having to use an active skill. They barely exist. In JP there are these characters here, and small effect means 15 points of overdrive. That means that it will build super fast if there are plenty of enemies on the field. And just remember, a normal attack will build 25 points of OD gauge. Well, this is extremely important in his build because he has a free attack when he uses overdrive, and this is global exclusive of something that will affect him when compared to his JP counterpart. Then the second passive is called Devoted Swordsmanship, starts the fight with 12 PP, and when he activates Overdrive, Jolting Slash Plus will be activated. This is an amplify over an old skill, and it became super strong. Triple S damage with 72 mod is one of the highest, and this skill will also be able to be amplified on a Victor and Jubei, that is actually Soji. Soji can use this, and it's extremely powerful on turn 1. Well, the only problem is that it can only be used on rank 1. Still, he will be using this alongside Hyper Overtension, that increases 20% at all times, 35 on combo and 50% on overdrive. That means he takes full advantage of 50% when using this on overdrive. Although Sekishusai only has 20% damage increase apart from overdrive, that doesn't seem much. He's actually pretty average for farming, not even close to the best one to use on farming setups. Besides, he is a counter specialist without any sort of damage reduction passive. Because he buffs endurance and will when being attacked, he will eventually get pretty strong, but the first hits will kinda hurt. Moving on to skills, the first one we have is called Thunderblade Chidori. This one is a free attack with slash and lightning damage in E Power 8 mod. It's just a little over a normal attack, and he can use it for free. It's cool because he gets lightning instead of just slash, but they missing an opportunity here since he does not have any damage passives and does not buff STR when attacking. That means that he lost a chance to buff STR before he eventually nukes on overdrive, but it is what it is. Then a second skill is called Disarm for 6 BP. He will enter an evasion counter stance. Evasion counter means that he does not take damage from direct attacks he will evade, and then counter with this attack that it's a power in 29 mod. And when the counter hits, there is a chance to decrease the enemy's STR by up to 15% on max level. Well, Disarm competes with another character that many people may or may not have, and that is the last version of Boston from Night Token's banner, that does the same thing but much better. Well, Boston has pincer time, a 7 VP attack that is fast, so that means that he goes first, and then he enters a defensive counter stance, and the attack itself is already a power. When he gets attacked, he will receive damage, not much because he's pretty defensive, and counter 3 times, and each hit has blunt and slash damage and will have a chance to debuff STR by up to 15%. If you hit 3 times, you just debuff at 45. His intelligence is much higher as well, and I have used Boston against some bosses and he makes some fights a joke. Because if the enemy attacks multiple times, you can get the STR to very low level. Some bosses may still have ways to cleanse debuffs, but you can keep reapplying and it will still work. So if you have this version of Boston, he totally replaces the Sekishusai method. The only good thing here is that Sekishusai evades, making it a better choice if the enemy has very powerful nukes, although he may fail to land debuffs because only 65% intelligence may not be enough. Then the last attack is called Jotin Slash X. This is similar to Jotin Slash Plus but even stronger, 4S with 85 mod. Slash and lightning again, and depending on the situations you can even get into overdrive on turn 2, and you can use Jotin Slash on turn 2, since it's 15, he will have 15 on second turn, alongside OD as well, so the free Jotin Slash comes after Jotin Slash X. The damage will be pretty massive, yeah, but then, since he does not buff STR, in very long fights, characters that self-buff will still outperform Sekishusai. The benefit of having him on a fight is to just keep buffing Endurance and Will all the time so that he takes less damage and draw more enemy attack because of Forged Adversity. His taunt stance will allow him to counter even better than Boston, although to less results. Now, the last attack is called Jotin Slash X, a 15 BP attack with slash and lightning damage, 4S power and an 85 modifier. This one maxed will do plenty of damage, but it's locked into turn 2, and he only has 20% damage passives. That means that when farming, even on full potential, these will not outclass some other nukers in the game, but still is pretty strong. We can compare Jotin Slash X to Socho, for example, so that you can see if he does more than Socho. He doesn't. Socho has a 4S attack as well, and he will be used to buff other people damage. You can even use them together if you want. If there's only one enemy, it's with 2 lightning, for example. These things will combine. Now, the only problem is that he doesn't have any BP passive. That means that after you use Jotin Slash on the second turn, you have to wait 5 turns to be able to use Jotin Slash again, and you will only be using Thunderblade Chidori that barely does any damage. So he will rely on getting to overdrive, and even using Thunderblade Chidori on overdrive will still give you Jotin Slash Plus, so the damage won't be bad if he gets into overdrive. So it's a matter of having the enemy attacking him many times, so that he can inflict more damage. He's a pretty different type of character that has tanking capabilities but relies on tanking to do more damage. But there's one more thing to say about Jotin Slash X. It does look pretty strong, but it won't do more damage than Soji Jotin Slash Plus if you amplify it from his S style from tower. Yeah, this S style comes from Spiral Tower. Many people had a lot of trouble getting, relies on RNG, but if you get Jotin Slash Plus, see, triple S power, 72 mod, Soji can use this on turn 1 even. and it will do more damage than Sekishusai. Even on turn 2, comparing that to Jochin's Lash Axe, it will still do more damage because he has much better damage passives. But Sekishusai is much better in boss fights. Soji has only 1 LP. He also loses the first passive after turn 1, so Soji is a much better farmer, but a much worse boss specialist. We can also compare Sekishusai to some other characters like Rag Robin, because Rag Robin also does slash damage. It's another character that gets status when being attacked, although Rag Robin gets Will and STR. STR by being directly attacked or indirectly attacked, but when he counters he gets Will. So 2 different status, and Rag Robin has very powerful attacks and better damage passives and even a damage reduction passive. All in all, Rag Robin wins. You always prefer to use him unless the enemy is only weak to lightning, for example. Another character that can be compared to is Strumniknen. A very different name, right? Well, Strumniknen is a Platinum style. Pretty hard to get, I still don't have this guy. And he has something similar to Sekishusai as well. When he gets attacked, he gets 3 different status by 20%, so STR, Endurance, and Will. Sekishusai does not have the STR part. And it doesn't also have the reduction in damage. See, he has block tension. Strumniknen is extremely powerful. His endurance will not start so high, but he eventually gets because it's 20% for each hit, and he can self-heal instead of countering with 8 PP, or use this very powerful attack called Morning Slash. So Strumniknen may not have counter capabilities, but he may still do plenty of damage, and he also does Slash. So if you have used Strumniknen in a fight, he's the best character for Remembrance battles, for example. You know how this thing works. Eventually stacking plenty of defensive buffs will allow you to survive pretty well. So there comes to the question, Sekishusai clashes with some other characters. If you have Polka, you hardly have reasons to use Sekishusai, and if you want to take advantage of this arm, you won't be using it if you have the last version of Boston. It does it much better. It's more of a question if you don't have the characters I'm mentioning that wants to take advantage of such a different type of mechanic. But besides all these points, I don't think that Sekishusai brings too much to the table in real fights, and that means that you can live without him if you want, although he's not that bad. And that's why he is going to receive a medium SS grade in our tier list. The next character is Sparrow. Well, he's a bow user with a focus on 3 different status. He only has this style now, there will be another one in the future. Well, his dexterity is 112%, this is top class, although not the highest in the game, and 95% intelligence. We have arrows and bonuses for those too, although his agility is also pretty high because he's a status inflictor and debuffer and wants to inflict stuff before the enemy attacks. Having a focus on those 3 things also allows him to be a nuker. Sadly, he loses by having endurance and will. Could have been worse, like Kazinski has terrible endurance and will. Love and charisma are bad, but they don't need to be high. Now, for passives we have Kill Mastery, 1 Dexterity and Intelligence. This was changed in Global, I need to do some research, and it buffs 10% Dexterity and Intelligence on the start of a turn before he attacks. That is actually nice, since right now I prefer to have a status buff than a lot of damage passives. And also gives him something else. When landing an attack that defeats a target, recovers MP by 5. Well, we saw this before with characters like Bertrand. Yes, Bertrand has it with his UDX style, and it allows him to kill targets and keep using his best attacks. Pretty useful when farming. Another one that has this is Alosis, and they are very good to be used alongside fast attackers to allow them to kill targets. And he has AoE and single target cycles. Well, Sparrow has some single target and roll cycles, so more into that later. Then Mastery 1 buffs his Dexterity and Intelligence, again the same status but this time by only 5%, and also gives him 1 BP, so he has 4 BP per turn. And then the last passive's fired up 6, increasing damage by 30%. Well, like I said, because he has at least one fired up, 6 and buffs his status in long fights is much better than just having plenty of damage passives, and it still allows him to do good damage on turn 1. For skills we have Shadow Weave Stitch, a 4 BP attack that has B power 21 mod. He can use it anytime since he has access to 4 BP, and it carries 2 different effects. The first has a chance to debuff agility by up to 15%. His intelligence is pretty high, he will be debuffed unless we are talking about extreme challenges. And there's also a high chance to inflict paralyze for 4 turns. Well, it's single target attack, but since he will probably be inflicting paralyze on 4 turns, it can even be used against challenges with more than one enemy to be affected by paralyze, and he can switch the target. Since he debuffs agility, the enemies won't attack before him even if they refresh. This also helps against the Real Queen if you haven't beat yet. There are other bow users with access to paralyze, even the Platinum Claudia for example, but since he's a pretty good damage dealer as well, he will just help those that haven't beat that yet. Then the second attack is called Eagle Break. For 7 BP, you get an Sparrow attack with 39 mod. Well, this one carries 2 different elements as well. The first, he gets a chance to debuff intelligence by up to 15%, and also a medium chance to inflict confusion. It's nice because 2 effects just like the first skill. I do believe it's easier to inflict confusion and paralyze in this game. In some specific challenges you may need this. A future remembrance battle will want you to either confuse or charm, and well, there's more enemies on the field, but you may bring charm with one character, confusion with another, so that you can prepare, although you may want AoE instead of single target. The damage is not bad at all. But it's all about the last attack, call it Izuna. This is a 9 BP attack that hits a row of enemies with slash and pierce damage, double S power and 54 mod. Well, 54 is just 2 mods before we enter triple S that starts on 56. This means that this attack is very close to triple S and it's super high when you consider that he buffs his dexterity before attacking. You can use a very strong weapon as well. Sparrow will be able to clear waves by himself if they are aligned in a row. Not all types of events, of course, depends on the amount of HP the enemy has. Some waves may have 100,000, those Sparrow will be able to solo. Those that have 150,000 he won't, but he will allow you to bring just one extra character to help out. And since he gets 5 BP when he kills, like I said, he can be used for single targets because Izuna is just as good as any other single target attack. But he can be used as a finisher for a row, because this one carries a row area. And then you can bring him in a Magia fight formation, for example, place him on the front line, in the back you bring someone with a fast attack like ScherBR, like Bertrand. They will just do the extra amount of damage that Sparrow may or not need to finish a wave, allowing him to attack again, because remember, he gets 4 BP per turn, and when he kills he gets 5. That's enough to use Izuna again on the second wave, and then on the third wave if you need so. So this is actually a massive attack in a character that has plenty of utility. The only problem with Sparrow is that he has very poor endurance and will and no mitigation, but it comes with a price. He's a high risk, high payoff type of character. Having this type of gameplay in a character without need of inheritance is actually pretty nice. I believe this comes with the price of having to summon it on a SaGa Soul banner that has one very bad style. He doesn't have any inheritance, but he does have a future style. That style came from a summer celebration on JP, and it's a little different. This one still has an attack that debuffs agility, and then he has this other attack that hits 2 times, and then a full AoE attack with Pierce and Cold. You can import and use it with the current one because that still does more damage, but this one has a chance to get 6 BP per turn, has 50% damage on turn 1, and even gets more with over Great Tension. So it's a complement, and depending on the situations, you may want to use one or another. Just to explain that this character does have a future, he became popular, was pretty used, and it's a good investment, I must say. He will be a high double S tier in our tier list. Well, and just for information, there is a future style that will get access to Izuna. He's even free, but not even close to the damage potential of Sparrow. And besides, in global, we also have Aries with Rapid Fire. This is a double hit attack that hits roll with Pierce and Heat, and even buffs her dexterity to do even more damage. So there is at least one more option for roll damage if you're having difficulty with Remembrance battle against Death Master. Now the last character is Aries. He's a wind mage with very good sustain. He has 100% endurance, 100% will. Although his intelligence and agility may not be top class, he barely attacks, so this does not affect him as much. Since he does not use SDR or dexterity, he could have just distribute his status in a better way. Love and charisma are average, so there's that. Then passive number 1 is called the Revitalize Tree. In the end of a turn, he has 25% chance to get 2 effects, heal of around 800 and recovers 3 points of BP. This is not reliable, but will allow him to use his skill number 3 more often and reduce the need of being healed. Then the second passive, called Close Quarters, has a 37% chance to trigger and grant 2 different effects. The first one, a 10% damage increase to the party. The second one, a 15% reduction in damage. The offensive part is whatever, because 10% barely matters, but reducing damage by 15% is good, but that's not good design because it's unreliable. And some characters have this, even this Platinum Arthur Dalton. And we don't use Arthur Dalton, do we? It's not something that you want to rely on. And then the third passive is called Iron Wall Defense 6, that decreases damage by 40%. So yeah, Aries is extremely defensive with such a high endurance, such a high will, and even a damage reduction passive. That is top class. Then for skill we have Air Screen. This is just a support spell that grants a defense boost to stance that will decrease damage by 15%. Well, this lasts for 4 turns and it stacks. You can keep casting on the same character. For example, if you have a tank, you go and use Aries Air Screen multiple times on this tank so that he receives less and less damage. But, well, I don't know if that's usually needed. Then the second spell is called Blades of Wind. With 3 BP you get deep power damage and will also recover 3 BP. That means that it's just a free way to recover what you just spent. It also removes his need to use normal attacks. You don't need to use normal attack because Blades of Wind will always be available and you will always recover 3 BP even if you miss. And the last spell is his selling point. Missile Shield is an 8 PP support skill that is both fast and full support, granting 3 different effects. The first one, a Guarded Medium, that will decrease damage by 25%. The second, a Blunt Defense Boost, that will decrease blunt damage by 35%. And also a Pierce Defense Boost, that will decrease pierce damage by 35%. So, if you are in a fight where most of the enemies do pierce and blunt damage, you can cast this, reduce damage by a lot. If there is one attack that carries both properties, it will decrease it even further since it stacks. The problem with this is just the how many times he can use this on a fight. He can open at least and decrease it from the start, but then after that he only gets 3 BP per turn. That means usually once every 3 turns, so there's a problem. He needs to trigger Revitalize Tree to get BP, but there's only 25% chance to trigger this. So unless you really like to restart fights till you get the perfect RNG, this character is not reliable. He also remembers me of a Spell Girl UDX style. She can get up to 5% per turn if she gets to attack. In Dimensional Aura, it's a 10 BP spell that has similar effects, like there's Guard Up, medium, there's this time Cold Defense boost, Shadow Defense boost, but comes with damage. And she's a much better character. She can heal, she can also AoE heal while doing damage. There's also high protect tension here, although she's more fragile, she can survive. So it's much better value, and if you have a spell girl, you hardly if ever use Aries unless you really need to survive a piercing blunt attack. Sadly, there could have been better stuff to do with this character. He needed better repeat cycles or sheep skills, but it is what it is. He just won't die. He stays there and try to wait for Arian Jesus to blast him so that he can blast the squad. Yeah, this is a very bad joke, but there's that. Aries is not that useful and he is not needed in any future content, and that's why he's only going to receive an S grade in our tier list. Now, moving on to the banner image, here comes the important question. Is this banner worth summoning for? Well, sadly, not as much. It will only receive a bronze award. The best character, in my opinion, is Sparrow because of being a long-term utility character, brings good damage, a way to keep attacking like Bertrand. He also carries status effect and utility, can be used in farming and in boss fights. It's pretty unique. Sekishusai is not bad, he's strong, but he kinda clashes with some other characters that can do what he does besides lightning damage. Besides, he can be used for those that skip his styles. But Aries is just not needed in kinda of a character that relies too much on RNG. Won't add in anyone's build. So, because of Aries not being so good, the banner value decreases a lot. And that's why I'm planning to skip. But what about you? What do you think about this? Do you want to summon? Have you already pulled it? Please say here on the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. And I want to see you again on the next video. Bye.